How far away from the slab did you feel the vibration? Did you feel it before you saw it?
No. Whenever when the doors of the freight elevator opened and I looked down, I could see it.
Okay.
I could. Yeah, I mean, it was no farther than from here to that camera pod, 6-7 feet away from me. Whenever we were walking in, but what made me stop?
It was that close,
right? What made me stop was as close as we got. I noticed that in front of me, with my dad and the other escort in front of him, it was almost like hopping a tripwire. When you're on the trail, you just get it and go. And that was the first thing I noticed. And then the closer I got to it, that intense vibration, and I was just too curious.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. I had to figure out what it was. And I really shouldn't have.
When did the vibration stop?
It didn't stop until I walked away.
Okay.
In the center, looking at the top of it, you could see this black box. I've tried to describe it before, and it was extremely difficult. It just looked like a small black GMTK toolbox that a military mechanic would have or carry around. It wasn't very big, and it just had 2 leads that came off of it. And it looked like it was wrapped in a casing that you could almost see something inside of it, but it wasn't mechanical. It wasn't moving. It didn't have lights. It was just opaque. But it didn't really seem to serve any purpose. But the other boulder had the same thing on top of it. But
so hold on, I'm sorry. Are you saying you saw 2 boulders and a slab?
Yeah.
And they were all 3 of them at the same time?
The slab itself, the monolithic slab, it was about 12 to 15 inches off the ground.
Okay.
And whenever I knelt down to tie my shoes, I could look through it, and I saw the first boulder that I noticed, and it was just sitting on the ground.
Okay.
And then I glanced back, and that's when I saw the other boulder that had the same black box on top that was being moved around.
And that was levitating?
Yes.
So one boulder levitating, 1 slab levitating, 1 boulder on the ground.
Correct.
Okay. Did the slab have a black box anywhere near it?
The monolithic slab?
Yeah.
It did.
It did? Where was that located?
It was on the top near the center where I was feeling most of the vibration. It was like the closer I got to it, that's where it was the most intense, at the center of the slab, where that box was on top of it.
Okay.
And after that, we go back upstairs the way we came, like I said. We get out of the door to leave. Van's still in the same place. We hop back in. We take that same 15-minute drive back to 18th Airborne Headquarters. They gave us our phone back. I got my ID. And then my dad said something to one of the other guys that I had recognized that he knew, that I didn't know his name. But that guy took everything that my dad had, minus his phones. He took the notes, he took the tapes, everything from him there. Didn't think much of it at that point. I didn't know if that was something he was going to submit to the Army Corps of Engineer rep that he had, whoever was going to coordinate, or give him the go-ahead to submit a bid to do this project. So to me, again, that didn't set off any bells. We're getting ready to leave. As I said, let me back that up. Before we go and get our phones and our identifications, the second guy that I recognized, the one that I do know, he was upstairs in the G5 War Room in the 18th HHC. And it's just him sitting at the desk as soon as you go into the vault. And he's got 2 pieces of paper. And he's like, I need you to sign this. And it was an NDA. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to sign that. Come on, man. Really? It's like, you know me. I don't give a shit. And my dad just kind of played it off to the same thing. He's like, man, I'm not signing that shit. So that's whenever we leave. At that point, I'm getting ready to go back to Georgia. This is roughly 24 hours later. I get a phone call. It was one of my dad's employees. He's like, hey, man, what's going on? I was, nah, not much. Just headed back to work. He said, well, we can't get to work. So what do you mean? He's like, well, Everything, they called it the barn, where we had all of our equipment stationed, where they would meet before they would go to Fort Bragg. He said the barn's locked up and everything's gone.
This is the same day?
No, this is 24 hours later.
Okay.
Whenever I'm getting ready to go back home. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, everything's gone. So I try to call my dad. I can't get up with him. I was like, just stand fast. I'm coming down there. So I get down there, and like you said, barn's locked up. Everything down there that I could see. I mean, you can still go there to this day. You could see our staging area and how big it was and all the equipment that we had there. It's absolutely barren. There's nothing there. It's all gone. And my dad at the time lived just around the corner from there. I go up there to his house, and the door is kicked in. And like the video I showed you earlier downstairs, I did that to illustrate how close me and my father were. Because just telling the story from this point on, it sounds inconsequential. But like, oh, well, sons and fathers have problems all the time. It's no big deal for bad blood to take over, and just people can be too much like each other, bullheaded, and not be able to communicate. And that's why I showed you that, so you could see what kind of, I mean, I've called the damn guy my hero, because he was. But I get in there, and my dad's sitting at his couch, and his office is just to the left of his living room, and everything is torn out. Everything is gone. And I was like, what's going on, man? He's like, it's all gone. I was like, do you think this has something to do with Range 19? And he stood up, that man you saw, and he said, don't you ever fucking mention that name to me again. And that was the last time that I got to spend any time face to face with my daddy. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a life, a business, everything that we built together, and I got no answers. I had no excuses, no reasons, no answers whatsoever. Just unreturned phone calls. The few times I ever did get a chance to speak to him, it was only my voice being heard. He'd just hang up on me.
He'd hang up on you.
Yeah. I didn't, my God, it wasn't until 2021 that I got to see him again.